Oh, darling, I can still feel the chill of that hospital room creeping into my bones when I think about it. I was lying there, eyes half closed, the morphine making everything fuzzy. And I heard my own daughter whisper, "She'll sign it now." She doesn't even know what day it is. That's the moment my heart cracked wide open, right there under those harsh fluorescent lights. Let me take you back to how it all started, because Lord knows I've replayed that week 1,000 times in my mind. It was late October, the kind of damp Ohio cold that seeps through the windows no matter how many quilts you pile on. I'd fallen in the kitchen, silly me, reaching for the good china on the top shelf to set the table for Sunday dinner. My hip gave out with a snap that echoed like a gunshot in my ears. Next thing I knew, I was in the back of an ambulance, the siren wailing like a banshee. The doctor said I shattered my femur clean through. "Mrs. Evelyn Harper," the surgeon told me, his voice kind but tired, "you're going to need a full hip replacement, and at 78, recovery won't be easy." I just nodded, thinking about my late husband Tom, how he'd tease me about being too stubborn to use a step stool. "Evie," he'd say, "one day that pride'll be the death of you." Maybe he was right. They wheeled me into surgery that same afternoon. The anesthesiologist had gentle hands and a soft voice, reminded me of my youngest grandson, Caleb. "Count backwards from 10, Evelyn," she said. I got to 7 before the world went black. When I woke up, the pain was a living thing, clawing at my side. But worse than the pain was the silence. My daughter Margaret should have been there, she'd promised. "Mum, I'll be right by your bed when you open your eyes," she'd said, kissing my forehead before they took me in. But the chair beside me was empty, just a crumpled tissue and a styrofoam cup of cold coffee. The nurse, bless her heart, her name was Rosa, kept coming in to adjust my IV. "Your family's in the waiting room," she whispered. "They've been here all night." I smiled through the fog, picturing Margaret pacing with worry, my son-in-law Richard probably reading the newspaper, and little Caleb playing games on his tablet. That's what kept me going through those first brutal hours. The thought of them. By the second day, the painkillers had me drifting in and out like tide pools. I'd hear voices, then nothing. The room smelled of antiseptic and wilted carnations someone had brought. Late that afternoon, I heard the door creak open. Footsteps, 2 sets, maybe 3. I was facing the window, watching rain streak down the glass like tears, when Margaret's voice cut through the haze. "Mum's out cold," she said, low and urgent. "The doctor upped her morphine. Now's our chance." My blood turned to ice. I kept my breathing steady, eyes slitted just enough to see shadows moving. Richard's silhouette loomed by the foot of my bed, holding papers, a whole stack of them crisp and white against his dark suit. "Margaret, are you sure about this?" That was my granddaughter Emily, sweet Emily, who used to pick dandelions in my backyard and call them wish flowers. Her voice trembled. "It's what's best for everyone," Margaret snapped. "Mum's not thinking clearly. The house, the savings bonds, Grandpa's coin collection. She'd want us taken care of. She told me herself last Christmas, remember? When she was tipsy on that eggnog." I wanted to scream. I'd had 1 sip of eggnog, 1, and mentioned maybe helping with Caleb's college someday, not handing over everything Tom and I had worked 60 years to build. Richard cleared his throat. "The power of attorney forms are right here. Once she signs, we can move her to Willow Creek, that assisted living place we toured. It's got activities, and she won't be alone in that big old house." Willow Creek, the one with the locked memory care wing, the one where Margaret had taken me just to look 3 months ago, pointing out the craft room like I was already losing my marbles. I'd laughed then, said, "Honey, I'm not ready for arts and crafts with strangers yet." But she'd just smiled too wide. Emily's shadow shifted. "Grandma's hip will heal. She could come home with rehab." "Home?" Margaret's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "That death trap, stairs everywhere, no railing in the bathroom. She fell once, she'll fall again. And who's going to take care of her? You're in Chicago. We've got our own lives. I felt each word like a slap. My fingers twitched under the blanket, wanting to reach for the call button, but I didn't dare move. Not yet. Richard rustled the papers. Look, the lawyer said if she's heavily medicated, her signature still holds as long as she's responsive. We just need to wake her gently, guide her hand. Guide my hand, like I was a child, like I was already gone. That's when I made my choice. I let my head loll to the side, gave a little moan, like the drugs were pulling me under. Inside, I was wide awake, memorizing every word, every breath. Margaret leaned close. I smelled her perfume. White shoulders, the same one I'd worn on my wedding day. She'd stolen it from my dresser years ago. "Mum?" she whispered, patting my cheek. "Mum, can you hear me?" I mumbled something incoherent, let my eyes flutter. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure they'd hear it. "Good," Richard muttered. "Pen's here. Margaret, you hold her wrist." But Emily, God bless that girl, stepped between them. "No, this feels wrong. Grandma's not... She's not ready for this. Let's wait till she's clearer." Margaret's voice turned venomous. "You think you know better than your own mother? This is family business, Emily. Stay out of it." Family business. That's what she called stealing my home while I lay broken in a hospital bed. I heard Emily's sharp intake of breath, then the sound of her heels retreating. The door clicked shut behind her. Just Margaret and Richard now, the predators circling. Margaret's hand closed around mine, cold, manicured fingers against my papery skin. "Mum, we need you to sign some papers for your care. You want to be safe, don't you?" I let out a weak, and shifted just enough to knock the pen from Richard's hand. It clattered to the floor. "Damn it!" he hissed. While they bent to retrieve it, I pressed the call button under my pillow. 3 quick pushes, the emergency code Rosa had shown me. Then I went limp again, playing possum for all I was worth. The door burst open 30 seconds later. Rosa's voice was steel. "What's going on in here?" Margaret stammered. "We were just..." "Visiting hours ended an hour ago," Rosa said. "And Mrs. Harper needs her rest. Out. Now." I didn't open my eyes until their footsteps faded. Then I grabbed Rosa's hand with all the strength I had left. "They're trying to take everything," I rasped. "My house, my money. Please, help me." Rosa's eyes widened, but she didn't flinch. "You just rest, Evelyn. I'm calling your lawyer, the one whose card you gave me yesterday. And security's escorting your visitors out." Sometimes love blinds you until it's too late. I'd spent years making excuses for Margaret. Her stressful job, her difficult marriage, the way she'd lost her first baby all those years ago. I thought if I just gave more, loved harder, she'd come back to the little girl who used to fall asleep on my lap during thunderstorms. But lying there in the dark, listening to the heart monitor beep steady and strong, I finally saw the truth. Some children don't come back. Some wounds fester, and some betrayals cut so deep, forgiveness feels like swallowing glass. The next morning, my real lawyer, Mr. Jenkins, who'd handled Tom's estate, arrived with a notary and a police officer. I was sitting up in bed, pain shooting through my hip, but my mind clear as spring water. The morphine drip had been reduced overnight. "Evelyn," Mr. Jenkins said, his kind eyes crinkling behind bifocals. "Rosa filled me in. We're revoking any prior powers of attorney and filing for a restraining order. But first, tell me everything you heard." So I did. Every word, every plan. The way Margaret's voice shook when she said, "Willow Creek." The way Richard's shoes squeaked on the linoleum when he paced. Emily showed up an hour later, eyes red from crying. She threw herself into my arms, sobbing, "Grandma." I tried to stop them. I recorded the whole thing on my phone. Started when I got that bad feeling in the hallway. "My brave girl." She'd slipped back in through the side door, hidden in the bathroom, and captured it all. Evidence. Justice. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal meetings in fluorescent conference rooms, Thanksgiving in the hospital with turkey from a tray, and nights staring at the ceiling wondering how I'd missed the signs. Margaret stopped answering my calls. Richard sent flowers with a card that said, "Misunderstanding." I threw them in the trash. But here's the thing, dear. Pain carves out space for truth. When I finally went home, on crutches, with a physical therapist named Mike who made me laugh till I cried doing leg lifts, I found Margaret had already changed the locks on my house. My house. The one Tom built with his own hands in 1972. That's when I stopped crying and started fighting. I won't bore you with the court dates and depositions, the way Margaret's lawyer tried to paint me as confused and elderly. But I will tell you about the day the judge, a woman with steel grey hair and a voice like my mother's, looked Margaret in the eye and said, "Ma'am, attempting to coerce a signature under medication is elder abuse, case closed. Mrs. Harper retains full control of her assets." Margaret didn't even look at me as she left the courtroom. Emily held my hand the whole way out. Sometimes I sit on my porch swing, the one Tom hung the summer we got married, and watch the maple leaves turn gold. I think about the diary I found in Margaret's old room, hidden under floorboards. Entries from when she was 15, raging about how I loved the house more than her, how I'd never understand her pain. I'd been working double shifts at the diner to pay for her dance lessons. She never knew. Maybe I should have known better. Maybe if I'd sat her down after her miscarriage, really listened instead of baking casseroles. But darling, we can't rewrite yesterday. We can only choose what we do with today. Emily moved into the spare room to help with my recovery. Caleb video calls every night, showing me his science projects. And Margaret? Last I heard, she and Richard separated. She sent a letter, 3 pages of apologies and excuses. I haven't answered yet. Some hurts need time to scab over, but I kept one thing from that hospital room, the call button. It's in my bedside drawer now, a reminder that even when you're at your weakest, you've got fight left. And sometimes pretending to sleep is the bravest thing you can do. Oh, honey, let me pour us both another cup of chamomile. My hands shake a little these days, but the steam still rises the same way it did when you kids were small, and I'd tell you bedtime stories by the radiator. Where were we? Ah, yes. The call button in the drawer. That little red piece of plastic saved more than my house. It saved me. The first night back in my own bed, after the court victory, I couldn't sleep. The house creaked like it was sighing with relief, but every shadow looked like Margaret's silhouette in the doorway. I kept the bedside lamp on low, the way Tom used to when the grandbabies stayed over. Around 2 a.m, I heard it. Tires on gravel. Slow. Deliberate. Headlights swept across the curtains like searchlights. I reached for the phone with one hand and that call button with the other, muscle memory from the hospital. My heart hammered so loud I was sure whoever was out there could hear it. The car door shut, soft, like they didn't want to wake the neighbours. Then footsteps on the porch. The old boards groaned under weight I knew too well. A key scraped in the lock. Margaret still had a spare. Of course she did. I'd given it to her the day she turned 16, told her, "This is your home forever, baby girl." What a fool. I dialed 911 but didn't hit send yet. Instead, I slipped out of bed, hips screaming, crutches clattering, and hid behind the china cabinet in the hallway. The door opened with a whisper. Moonlight spilled across the hardwood, and there she was, my daughter, coat collar turned up, hair damp from the drizzle. She carried a cardboard box and a flashlight. She didn't call out. Just moved like a ghost through her childhood home, opening drawers, lifting photo albums. I watched her pause at the mantel, run a finger over the picture of her at 8 years old, gap-toothed and grinning on Tom's shoulders at the county fair. Her shoulders shook, just once. Then she went straight to the roll-top desk in the corner. The one with the false bottom where Tom kept the deed, the savings bonds, the will. She knew exactly where to press. The panel popped open. She pulled out the manila envelope, thick with everything we'd built, and tucked it into her box. That's when I stepped out. "Looking for something, Margaret Ann?" She spun, flashlight beam hitting me square in the face. For a second, she looked 12 again, caught sneaking cookies before dinner. Then her face hardened. "Mum, you shouldn't be out of bed." "Funny," I said, voice steady as Sunday hymns. "I was about to say the same to you." She set the box down slow, like it might explode. I needed some papers. For taxes. Richard's lawyer." "Stop." I leaned on my crutch, the other hand finally pressing send on the phone. "Dispatch, this is Evelyn Harper at 412 Maple Lane. I have an intruder. Yes, I'll stay on the line." Margaret's eyes went wide. "Mum, hang up, we can talk." "Talk?" I laughed, but it came out brittle. "Like we talked in the hospital? Like when you tried to sign my life away while I was doped up on morphine?" The envelope slipped from her fingers, papers scattering like fallen leaves. She dropped to her knees, scrambling to gather them. "You don't understand. Richard's debts. His business failed. They're going to take everything. The house in Columbus, the cars. I thought if I could just—" "Steal from your mother." I finished for her. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. "You thought wrong." The officers arrived within minutes. 2 young men who looked barely old enough to shave. They knew me. Officer Daniels had mowed my lawn every summer in high school. He took one look at Margaret on the floor, papers everywhere, and shook his head. "Mrs. Harper, do you want to press charges?" Margaret looked up at me then, mascara streaking her cheeks. "Mum, please." I should have felt triumph. Instead, I felt hollow, like someone had scooped out my insides and left only the shell. "No charges," I said finally. "But you're leaving, and you're never coming back without my say-so." They escorted her out. She left the box, the envelope, even her coat. I found it draped over the porch swing the next morning, damp with dew and regret. Emily moved in permanently after that. She quit her fancy marketing job in Chicago, said she'd rather help me with physical therapy than chase deadlines. We turned Margaret's old bedroom into an office, painted it the soft yellow of daffodils. Caleb comes every weekend, does his homework at the kitchen table where I used to roll out pie crusts. He asks questions now, real ones. "Grandma, why doesn't Aunt Margaret visit?" I tell him the truth, age-appropriate. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt the people they love. It's complicated, sweetheart. But the complicated part kept coming. 3 months after the break-in, a letter arrived, no return address, postmarked from a town 2 hours north. Inside was a single photograph. Margaret at maybe 6 years old, sitting on Tom's lap in the old Ford pickup, both of them laughing so hard their eyes were slits. On the back, in her handwriting, "I found this in storage." I'm sorry I forgot how to laugh like that. I pinned it to the fridge with the magnet from our 1985 family reunion. Emily saw it and didn't say a word, just squeezed my shoulder. Then came the nursing home calls. Willow Creek. Ironic, isn't it? Phoning to say Margaret had checked herself in for exhaustion. They needed my permission to release medical records since I was still listed as emergency contact. I drove up there on a Tuesday, the kind of grey day where the sky presses down like a lid. She was in the garden room, thinner, hair gone grey at the temples. When she saw me, she stood so fast her chair scraped backward. "Mum." The aide discreetly left us alone. We sat at a table with a puzzle half finished, some lighthouse scene. Neither of us touched it. "I sold the house in Columbus," she said, without preamble. "Paid off Richard's debts. He's gone. Vegas, last I heard. I kept nothing but my clothes and that photo." I nodded. The silence stretched, thick as bread dough. "I was drowning," she whispered, "and instead of reaching for you, I pushed you under. I don't know how to fix that." "You start," I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded, "by telling the truth. All of it." So she did. Over lukewarm tea and vending machine cookies, she told me about the affair Richard had been hiding for years, with his secretary no less. About the gambling, the second mortgage. How every time she tried to leave, he'd threatened to take Caleb. How she'd convinced herself that if she could just secure my assets, she could buy her way out of the mess. "I thought I was protecting my son," she said, voice cracking. "Turns out I was teaching him how to lose everything." I reached across the table then, covered her cold hand with mine. "Margaret, look at me." She did, eyes the same hazel as Tom's. "You're not the first woman to marry a liar, but you're the first in this family to try stealing from her mother to fix it. That's a line, baby, a big one." She started to cry, the ugly kind where your whole face crumples. I let her. Sometimes tears are the only honest thing left. When she quieted, I pulled a small envelope from my purse. Inside was the key to the house, the original one, the one I'd given her at 16. "This still opens the front door," I said. "But it doesn't open trust. That's earned, one day at a time." She took the key like it burned. "What do I have to do?" "Come to Thanksgiving, sit at my table, look Emily in the eye, look Caleb in the eye. And every time you're tempted to lie, even a little white one, you remember how it felt to kneel on my floor picking up papers you had no right to." Thanksgiving that year was, well, it was something. The turkey was dry, the gravy lumpy, and Margaret burned the rolls. Emily set an extra place, just in case Richard showed up. He didn't. Caleb asked if he could say grace, and when he thanked God for second chances and Grandma's apple pie, Margaret excused herself to the bathroom for 10 minutes. But she came back, and she stayed through dishes, through the Lions game on TV, through the moment Caleb fell asleep on her lap under the Afghan I'd crocheted when she was born. Sometimes healing looks like burnt rolls and awkward silences. Sometimes it looks like your daughter falling asleep in the same spot she did at 5 years old, trusting the house won't disappear while her eyes are closed. We're not fixed. Lord, no. There are days I still check the locks twice. Days Margaret flinches when I mention money. But she's in therapy now. Real therapy. Not the kind where you just complain about your mother. She got a job at the library, shelving books and reading to toddlers on Saturday mornings. Caleb says she smiles more. And me, I started a little tradition. Every Sunday after church, I drive to the cemetery where Tom's buried. I bring 2 folding chairs, one for me, one empty. I talk to him about the weather, the garden, the way the maple tree finally had to come down because of root damage. And I talk about Margaret. Last week, I brought her with me. She stood there in her sensible coat, hands clasped like a child at recess. When I laid the flowers, daisies, Tom's favourite, she whispered, "Dad, I messed up bad. But I'm trying to be the daughter you raised." The wind picked up then, rustling the leaves like applause, or maybe forgiveness. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. Emily's pregnant now, due in April. She and her fiancé Mark bought the empty lot next door, planned to build a little house with a connecting gate. Caleb's already picking out paint colours for his room there. We're calling it the family compound, half joking. Margaret laughed when she heard, really laughed, the kind that starts in your belly. I still keep that call button in the drawer, but now it sits next to something else. A new key, duplicate, labelled Margaret in my shaky handwriting. She doesn't have it yet. Maybe next Thanksgiving. Maybe when the baby's born and she's changed her first diaper without being asked. Darling, if I've learned anything from pretending to sleep while my world tried to sign itself away, it's this. People can surprise you. They can wound you deep enough to scar. And sometimes, they can choose to heal. The hospital sent me a survey 6 months later, asking about my stay. I filled it out in purple ink. The colour Tom always said matched my eyes when I was angry. Under additional comments, I wrote, "The call button works. So does love. Eventually." I signed it Evelyn Harper, still kicking. "Oh, sweet pea, come sit closer. The fire's crackling nice now, and I've got a fresh pot of decaf steaming on the trivet. I can still smell the pine from the wreath Emily hung on the door this morning. Reminds me of the Christmas we almost didn't have. That's the part I haven't told you yet, the part that still makes my throat tight when the snow starts to fall. It was December 23rd, 2 years after the hospital, 1 year after that first awkward Thanksgiving. I'd been feeling stronger, hip held up through raking leaves and even a slow dance with Caleb at the fall barn dance. The house was decorated like the old days, tinsel on the banister, the ceramic tree Tom's mother painted, spinning lazy colours across the ceiling. Emily had strung popcorn garland with the baby on the way, belly round as a sugar pumpkin under her red sweater. Margaret was coming for Christmas Eve. She'd asked, timid, like she was requesting permission to breathe. I'd said yes. One condition: no Richard, no excuses, no gifts that cost more than $20. "Bring yourself," I told her. "That's plenty." She arrived at dusk, snowflakes catching in her hair like sugar on gingerbread. She carried a paper grocery sack and a nervous smile. Inside the sack, a jar of homemade applesauce, a pine cone painted gold by Caleb, and a small wrapped box. "For later," she said, cheeks pink from cold or shame, hard to tell. We bustled like old times. Emily stirred cocoa on the stove, humming "Oh Holy Night." Caleb set the table with the good dishes, the ones with the holly border we only used twice a year. Margaret peeled potatoes without being asked, her knife moving steady through the skins. I caught her glancing at the fridge at that old photo of her and Tom in the pickup. She smiled, small, real. Dinner was ham glazed with brown sugar, green beans with bacon, and my cornbread dressing that Tom swore could resurrect the dead. We laughed when Caleb dropped a roll and the dog, our new mutt, Biscuit, snatched it mid-air. For 1 golden hour, the past felt folded away like the good linens in the cedar chest. Then the doorbell rang, 3 sharp chimes like a warning. Emily wiped her hands on the apron. "Were we expecting anyone?" I knew before I opened the door. Richard stood on the porch, snow dusting his shoulders, holding a poinsettia so big it hid half his face. Behind him, a black SUV idled in the driveway, exhaust curling like cigarette smoke. "Merry Christmas, Evelyn," he said, voice smooth as the bourbon he used to hide in the garage. "Thought I'd surprise the family." Margaret froze at the sink, potato peeler clattering into the bowl. Caleb's eyes went wide. Emily stepped in front of him like a mother hen. I didn't move. "You weren't invited." Richard's smile didn't waver. "It's Christmas. Time for forgiveness, right?" He tried to step inside, boot crossing the threshold. I blocked the doorway with my cane, the same one I'd used after surgery, aluminum and stubborn. "Forgiveness isn't a doorstep you wipe your feet on, Richard. It's earned, and you're still in debt." Behind me, Margaret found her voice. "Leave, Richard, now." He lowered the plant, eyes narrowing. "You don't get to speak for her, Margaret. You lost that right when you crawled back here with your tail between your legs." The words hit like ice water. Margaret flinched, but then, "Lord help me." She straightened. "No," she said, stepping forward until she stood beside me. "I lost the right when I let you convince me my mother was the enemy. But I'm taking it back. One choice at a time." Richard's face twisted. "You think you can just erase me? After everything Everything you gambled away," Emily cut in, voice sharp. "Everything you tried to steal from a woman recovering from surgery. Get off this porch." Caleb peeked around her legs. "You made Grandma cry," he said, small but fierce. "Go away." Something shifted in Richard then, like a man seeing the cliff edge too late. He set the poinsettia on the welcome mat, red petals stark against the snow. "Fine," he muttered. "Keep your little hallmark moment." He turned, slipped on the icy step, and caught himself on the railing. The SUV door slammed, tires spun, then caught, spraying slush across the lawn. We stood in the doorway, 4 generations breathing fog into the night. Snow kept falling, soft and relentless. Margaret closed the door, locked it, then leaned her forehead against the wood and whispered, "I'm sorry. I should have changed the locks on him years ago." I touched her shoulder. "You just did, baby. You just did." We didn't open presents that night. Instead, we pushed the furniture back and slow danced in sock feet to Nat King Cole on the record player. Caleb fell asleep on the couch mid-twirl, thumb in mouth like he was 4 again. Emily's fiancé Mark arrived late with a flat tire and a bottle of sparkling cider, stayed to help eat leftovers at midnight. Margaret gave me her gift after the others went to bed. We sat by the tree, lights twinkling off the tinsel. The box was small, wrapped in newspaper comics. Inside, a silver locket on a thin chain. When I opened it, there were 2 photos, one of Tom holding newborn Margaret, one of me holding newborn Emily. On the back engraved, "Love is the only inheritance that grows when you give it away." I cried then, quiet, the way snow falls. She cried too. We didn't say much. Some moments don't need words. The next morning, Christmas Day, I found Richard's poinsettia frozen solid on the mat. I carried it to the backyard and set it under the maple stump where the tree used to be. Let the roots have the water, I figured. Let something grow from what he tried to kill. Spring came early that year. Emily's baby, a girl we named Ruth after my mother, arrived screaming on April 10th, same day the daffodils opened. Margaret was in the delivery room holding Emily's hand when I couldn't because my arthritis flared. She cut the cord, rocked Ruth to sleep that first night while Emily dozed. I watched from the doorway, tears slipping sideways into my hair, and thought, this is what redemption looks like. Messy, loud, covered in spit-up. Margaret moved into the attic apartment, finished now with skylights and a tiny kitchenette. She pays rent in babysitting and Sunday dinners. Some nights I hear her singing lullabies through the ceiling, same ones I sang to her. The circle turns. Caleb started, calling her Mom again instead of Aunt Margaret. Took 6 months. Said it first when she helped him build a birdhouse for scouts. She cried so hard the hammer slipped and dented the wood. They left the dent, called it character. And me? I finally gave her the new key. Not at Thanksgiving, at Ruth's baptism, when the preacher asked who stood for this child and Margaret's hand shot up before anyone else's. I pressed the key into her palm during the reception, amid sheet cake and lemonade in the church basement. "This one opens the front door and the trust," I told her. "Don't make me regret it." She closed her fist around it like it was made of glass. "I won't, Mama. I swear on every star in the sky." We still have hard days. Anniversaries of the hospital stay, of the break-in, they sneak up like frostbite. Margaret keeps a jar on her dresser. Every time she's tempted to hide something, a parking ticket, a bad day at work, she writes it on a slip of paper and drops it in. Once a month we burn them together in the fire pit out back. Watch the lies turn to ash. It's our ritual now. Last week, Emily found my old diary, the one from 1978 when Margaret was 2 and Tom was working overtime at the mill. I'd written, "She threw her cereal bowl today and screamed, 'I hate you.' I cried in the laundry room. Lord, don't let me fail her." Emily read it aloud while Margaret folded tiny onesies. When she finished, Margaret looked at me with Ruth asleep on her shoulder and said, "You didn't fail me, Mum. I failed us. But we're fixing it. One bowl of cereal at a time." I laughed till I couldn't breathe, because she was right. "Darling, if you take nothing else from this old woman's ramblings, take this. Betrayal carves a canyon in your heart, but grace, real stubborn grace, builds bridges across it. Sometimes the bridge is made of burnt rolls and dented birdhouses. Sometimes it's a key you're terrified to hand over, but you build it anyway. One plank, one truth, one Christmas at a time. The call button's still in the drawer, but now it's next to the locket, the new key, and a tiny handprint in plaster from Ruth's first birthday. I don't need to press it anymore. I've got a house full of people who'd hear me call from the next room. And when the snow falls again this year, I'll set a poinsettia on the porch, not frozen but alive. Water it myself. Let it bloom red as forgiveness. Because some things are worth saving. Oh, child, the years have a way of folding in on themselves, don't they? Like the pleats in the lace curtains I still iron every spring. I was just out back this morning, hanging Ruth's little sundresses on the line. She's 3 going on 30, that one. And the breeze carried the scent of lilacs all the way from the bush. Tom planted the year Margaret started kindergarten. I stood there with a clothespin in my mouth, sun on my face, and realised it's been 5 whole years since that Christmas Eve standoff on the porch. 5 years. Can you imagine? Come June, the whole family piles into the backyard for what we call Harper reunion days. 3 days of tents, string lights, and more potato salad than any church picnic has ever seen. Emily's Mark built a proper fire pit out of fieldstone, and Caleb, Lord, he's 14 now, all knees and elbows, strung Edison bulbs from the maple stump to the new sugar maple we planted in its place. Margaret's the unofficial grill master. She's got a kiss the cook apron that says I turned my life around, and all I got was this lousy apron. She wears it like a badge, but let me take you to last summer because that's when the final piece clicked into place. The one I didn't even know was missing. It was the second night of the reunion. The air thick with fireflies and the low hum of cicadas. The grown-ups were playing cards on the picnic table, kids chasing each other with sparklers, when a pickup I didn't recognise rumbled up the driveway. Dust settled, and out stepped a man I hadn't seen in 25 years. Tommy Jr., Tom's nephew, the one who moved to Montana after his daddy passed and never wrote. He was thicker around the middle, hair gone silver, but those eyes, same Harper blue as my Tom. He stood there holding a manila envelope and a shy grin. Aunt Evie, heard through the cousin grapevine you'll do a big shindig. Figured it was time. I near dropped my sweet tea. Margaret was at my elbow in a heartbeat, hand on my back like she used to when I'd get dizzy after surgery. You okay, Mum? I nodded, throat tight. Tommy, you get over here and hug my neck. He did, and he smelled like pine and road dust and second chances. Over his shoulder, I saw a woman climb out of the passenger side, pretty, maybe 50, with a toddler on her hip. Tommy's wife, Lena, and their granddaughter, Daisy. The circle just kept widening. We settled them at the big table with plates piled high. Tommy told stories about Tom I'd never heard, how they'd sneak out to the creek to fish when they were boys, how Tom once traded his bicycle for a pregnant stray dog because she looked like she needed a family more than I needed wheels. Everyone howled. Even Biscuit the dog thumped his tail. Later, when the little ones were tucked into sleeping bags and the adults nursed coffee around the fire, Tommy handed me the envelope. Uncle Tom mailed this to Mum right before he passed. She kept it in a lockbox, told me to bring it if I ever came east. Said you'd know what to do. My fingers shook as I opened it. Inside, a letter in Tom's handwriting, shaky from the Parkinson's, dated 3 weeks before the heart attack that took him. Evie, love, if you're reading this, I'm fishing with the angels and you're still too stubborn to join me. There's a safety deposit box at First National, key taped under the roll-top desk's false bottom, you know the one. Inside is the coin collection, yes, but also something for Margaret. Tell her I never stopped seeing the little girl who used to fall asleep on my chest during thunderstorms. Tell her a man's love doesn't expire just because his daughter forgets how to receive it. Use the coins however you'll see fit. College, a trip, or just a really good bottle of wine. But give Margaret the letter inside the velvet pouch. She'll know. And Evie, if she ever comes home, meet her on the porch, not with anger, with the porch light on. That's how we always found each other. All my love, forever. T. I didn't read it aloud, just pressed it to my heart and felt the years collapse. Every fight, every silence, every hospital beep folding into this moment under the stars. Margaret was watching me, eyes reflecting the fire. I crooked a finger. She came, sat on the log beside me. I slipped Tom's letter into her hand. From your daddy. He wrote it for you. She took it to the edge of the light, sat on the grass with her back to the maple stump, and read by the glow of a citronella candle. I didn't watch. gave her the dignity of privacy. When she came back, her face was wet but calm, like a field after rain. She didn't speak till morning. We were in the kitchen, just the two of us, flipping pancakes while the house slept. She set a small velvet pouch on the counter. Inside, a single coin, a 1921 peace dollar, shiny as the day it was minted, and a tiny folded note in Tom's scrawl. For my Maggie girl. Peace is a verb. Go practice it. Margaret laughed through tears. He always did have a way with words. We took that coin to the bank the next week. Turns out the whole collection was worth enough to pay off Emily and Mark's mortgage and set up a college fund for Ruth and Daisy both. But Margaret insisted on one more thing. She had the peace dollar mounted in a shadow box with Tom's note. It hangs now in the hallway, right beside the family photos. A daily reminder that peace isn't a feeling, it's a choice. Over and over, fall rolled around again, and with it, another milestone. Margaret's 50th birthday. She didn't want a party, said she'd had enough surprises to last a lifetime. But Emily and I were sneaky. We planned a quiet dinner, just family, lasagna from scratch, garlic bread, and the chocolate cake with fudge frosting she loved as a kid. We blindfolded her at the door, led her giggling into the dining room. When we whipped off the scarf, the table was set for 20. Every cousin, every grandkid, even Tommy and Lena on Zoom from Montana. And in the centre, a single chair with a sash that read, "World's okayest daughter, finally promoted to excellent." She burst into tears, the happy kind. Caleb handed her a gift, a leather-bound journal. Inside, every person had written a memory of her from before the darkness. Emily's was about the summer Margaret taught her to ride a bike. Mine was the night she was 7 and had nightmares, how she crawled into our bed and Tom let her sleep between us, her cold feet on my shins, his arm around us both like a promise. Margaret read them aloud, voice cracking. When she got to mine, she looked up and said, "Mum, I kept a journal too, all these years. Want to trade?" We did. Later, on the porch swing, crickets singing backup. Hers was full of anger at first, pages of "why doesn't she see me, why is the house more important?" Then slowly, entries about therapy, about learning to say, "I was wrong," without choking on it. The last page, dated the night before. "I used to think love was something you were owed. Turns out it's something you water, every day, even when your hands shake." I gave her my journal in return, the one that started the day she was born. Entries about her first steps, her first heartbreak, the way she'd sing "You Are My Sunshine" off-key while colouring. And yes, the dark years. She hasn't called in 6 months. I leave the porch light on anyway. We sat there till the stars came out, journals in our laps like bridges. Then Margaret did something I'll never forget. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the new house key, the one I'd given her at Ruth's baptism. She pressed it into my palm, closed my fingers around it. "I don't need this anymore," she said. "I'm not a guest here, I'm home." I tried to give it back, but she shook her head. "Keep it, Mom. Put it with the call button. A matched set, one for emergencies, one for every day." So that's where it lives now, in the bedside drawer, the red call button and the shiny key side by side. Sometimes Ruth sneaks in there when she thinks I'm napping, lines up her toy cars around them like they're treasures. I let her. Children understand sacred things better than we do. And Richard? Funny you should wonder. I was getting to that. He showed up again last month, not at the door this time, at the library where Margaret works. She was reading Where the Wild Things Are to the preschoolers, doing all the voices, when he slipped in the back. Stood there in a cheap suit, thinner, eyes sunken. When story time ended, the kids swarmed her for hugs. He waited till the room cleared. Margaret saw him and didn't flinch. She walked right up, calm as Sunday morning. "You've got 5 minutes." They sat at the little turtle table, her knees almost to her chin. He talked fast, about rehab in Arizona, about a dishwashing job, about wanting to see Caleb. She listened, Then she slid a piece of construction paper across the table. On it, a drawing Caleb had done in art therapy. Stick figure Richard with a big red X through him, and the words, "I don't know you anymore." "That's from my son," she said. "When you can look him in the eye and hear why he drew that without making excuses, then we'll talk about 5 minutes. Not before." Richard left without another word. Margaret came home that night and burned a slip of paper in the fire pit. Almost let him in. We watched the ashes rise like tiny ghosts. Some doors stay closed for good. That's okay. Winter's knocking again now. I can smell it in the air, sharp like peppermint and wood smoke. The ceramic tree is up, spinning its colours across the ceiling. Ruth asked if we could leave a plate of cookies for Santa and for Great-Grandpa Tom in heaven. Caleb said he'd build a tiny ladder out of popsicle sticks so the cookies could reach. Margaret just smiled and added an extra sprinkle of coconut to the snowball cookies, Tom's favourite. I still check the locks at night, old habits, but now I check them with a lighter heart. The porch light stays on, not out of fear, but invitation. You never know who might need to find their way home, and if you're ever driving down Maple Lane on a snowy evening, look for the house with the wreath made of pine cones and the glow spilling warm onto the walk. That's us. There's always room at the table, an extra quilt on the couch, and a story or two if you've got the time. Because, darling, family isn't the people who share your blood. It's the ones who show up when the blood's been spilled, with bandages, with truth, with burnt rolls and second chances, the call button and the key. They're just things. The real magic is in the hands willing to press one and turn the other. Every single day. Oh, darling, the frost is thick on the windows this morning, and Ruth's little nose is pressed to the glass, watching the cardinals hop along the fence like drops of Christmas ribbon. I'm sitting here with my knitting, another scarf for Caleb, this one navy blue because he says it makes him look mysterious at school. And I can't help but think how the quiet moments are the ones that stitch a life together. You've been patient with this old woman, and I reckon there's one last corner of the story I've been saving, like the last piece of pecan pie hid behind the milk in the fridge. It happened just last week, the first real snow of the season, the kind that muffles the world and makes every footstep a secret. I'd been up early baking cinnamon rolls for the church bazaar when the phone rang, landline, not my cell, which only ever rings for telemarketers these days. The voice on the other end was thin, crackly, like dry leaves skittering across pavement. "Mrs. Harper, this is Willow Creek, the assisted living. We have a resident asking for you. Says it's urgent." My stomach dropped straight through my slippers. Willow Creek. The name alone tasted like betrayal and burnt coffee. I hadn't heard from anyone there since Margaret checked herself in all those years ago. "Who?" I managed. A pause. "Richard Harlan. He's not long for this world, ma'am. Cancer. Stage 4. Keep saying your name and something about a porch light." I stood there in my flour-dusted apron, yeast rising on the counter, and felt the past rush in like cold air under the door. Richard. The man who'd tried to sign my life away while I lay doped up on morphine. The man who'd stood on my porch with a poinsettia and venom in his smile. The man Margaret had finally shut the door on. I should have hung up. Should have said, "Tell him the light's burned out." But Tom's letter flashed in my mind. Meet her on the porch, with the porch light on. And I heard myself say, "I'll be there by noon." Margaret was at the kitchen table when I told her, colouring with Ruth, making paper snowflakes. Her scissors stopped mid-cut. "Mum, you don't owe him anything." "I know," I said, wiping my hands on a dish towel. "But I think I owe me something. Closure, maybe. Or just the chance to look him in the eye and see what's left." Emily offered to drive. Caleb wanted to come for protection, clutching a baseball bat he's outgrown. I kissed them all and went alone. Some roads you walk by yourself, even when your hip clicks like a metronome. Willow Creek looked smaller than I remembered, peeling paint, Plastic wreaths on the doors, the lobby smelling of overcooked peas and Lysol. A nurse led me down a hallway lined with faded construction paper turkeys to a room at the end. The door was open. Richard lay propped on pillows, a shadow in flannel pajamas, oxygen hissing soft through his nose. His eyes, once sharp as broken glass, were milky now, fixed on the window where snow drifted past. He didn't hear me at first. I cleared my throat. Richard. His head turned slow. Recognition flickered. Then something else. Fear. Maybe shame. Evelyn. His voice was a rasp. Didn't think you'd come. Neither did I. I stayed in the doorway, hands clasped around my purse strap like a shield. He tried to sit up, failed, sank back. I'm dying. Liver, lungs. Pick one. A cough rattled through him, wet and ugly. When it passed, he gestured to a chair. Sit, please. I sat. The chair squeaked. Snow tapped the window like impatient fingers. I don't want forgiveness, he said, eyes on the ceiling. No, I don't deserve it. Just need to say it out loud before I can't. He took a shaky breath. I was a coward, a greedy, lying coward. That day in the hospital, I told Margaret you were slipping, that we were saving you from yourself. Truth is, I was drowning and dragged her down with me. I didn't speak. Let the silence do its work. I lost everything, he went on. Money, house, respect. Caleb won't take my calls. Margaret. She sent me a card when I got diagnosed. One line. I hope you find peace. No signature. That hurt worse than the chemo. He fumbled for a tissue, missed. Let it fall. I keep dreaming about your porch. That night with the poinsettia. You standing there with the cane, Margaret beside you. I see it every time I close my eyes. Like a warning. I leaned forward then. Just enough. Richard, look at me. He did. Tears tracked into the hollows of his cheeks. That porch light's been on for years, I said. Not for you. For my daughter. For my grandkids. For anyone who needs to find their way home. You want to make this right? Stop dreaming about my porch and start fixing what you broke. Write Caleb a letter. Tell him the truth. No excuses. Tell him his mother's the strongest woman you ever knew, and you're sorry you tried to dim her light. Then mail it. Whether he reads it or burns it, that's his choice. But you send it. He nodded, small like a child. I will, I swear. I stood. My hip protested, but I ignored it. One more thing. That coin collection you wanted a piece of, it paid for 2 college funds and a mortgage. Tom's love did that, not you. Remember that when you're writing. I was at the door when he whispered, Evelyn, thank you for coming. I paused, hand on the knob. I didn't come for you, Richard. I came for me, so I could leave the hate here and go home to my family. The drive back was quiet, snow piling soft on the windshield. I stopped at the cemetery on the way. Tom's stone dusted white like confectioner's sugar. I brushed it off with my glove and told him everything. I think I finally understand the porch light, I said. It's not about who deserves it. It's about who might need it. That night, I baked the cinnamon rolls anyway. The church ladies would never know they carried a dying man's confession in every swirl. Margaret helped ice them, Ruth licking the spoon, Caleb sneaking pinches of dough. When the last pan went in the oven, Margaret pulled an envelope from her pocket, thick, addressed in shaky handwriting to Caleb. It came today, she said, from Willow Creek. We didn't open it. That's Caleb's mail, his choice. But he set it on the mantel beside Tom's shadow box, right under the peace dollar. Said he'd read it when he was ready. Maybe tomorrow, maybe never. Either way, it's there. 3 days later, the call came. Richard passed in his sleep. The nurse said he was clutching a photo of Caleb at age 5, the one Margaret had sent years ago with no note. He'd written on the back in pencil, I was wrong. You were always enough. We didn't go to the funeral. No one asked us to. But Margaret lit a candle in the kitchen window that night, just one, small and steady. "For the man he could have been," she said. We let it burn till morning, and life, stubborn as dandelions through sidewalk cracks, kept growing. Spring brought Ruth's 4th birthday. Princess theme, tiaras made from pipe cleaners, a cake shaped like a castle that leaned dangerously to one side. Tommy and Lena flew in from Montana, Daisy now toddling and calling me Gamma Ev. Caleb read Richard's letter aloud to the family after the candles were blown out. His voice didn't shake once. When he finished, he folded it neat and tucked it into the shadow box beside the coin. "For the story," he said, "so we remember all of it." Margaret started a support group at the library, second chapters for folks rebuilding after betrayal, addiction, loss. Meets Thursday nights in the children's section after story time. She serves coffee in mugs that say peace is a verb. Attendance keeps growing. Emily and Mark broke ground on a sunroom off the back of the house. Big windows, heated floors, space for Ruth to paint and for me to nap in a rocker when my hip acts up. Margaret's already planning bookshelves. Says every family needs a room where the light pours in and the stories never end. And me? I turned 83 last month. Had a party in the backyard with a bounce house, Ruth's idea, and a pig roast, Caleb's. Margaret gave me a gift wrapped in the Sunday comics. A new call button, bright red, with a note, "For emergencies only. But you'll never need it again." I laughed till I cried, then hung it on the Christmas tree as an ornament. It's still there, twinkling among the lights. Sometimes late at night I walk the house in my robe and slippers, checking locks out of habit. But now I linger at each window, watching the porch light glow steady against the dark. I think of Richard's last breath, of Tom's letter, of Margaret's hand in mine the night she came home for good. I think of you too, dear, yes you, listening to this old woman ramble. Because every story I tell is a porch light of its own. A beacon for anyone lost in their own storm, proof that the door can open again if you're brave enough to knock. The cinnamon rolls are cool now. Ruth's napping with biscuit curled at her feet. Margaret's humming in the kitchen starting supper, chilly, extra spicy, the way Tom liked it. Caleb's upstairs, probably texting some girl and pretending he's not. Emily's planting tulip bulbs along the walk, humming harmony. And me? I'm here, still kicking, still leaving the light on. Because love, like peace, is a verb. And verbs? They keep going, long after the sentence ends. Oh, honey, the house is quiet now, just the tick of the grandfather clock and the soft creak of the floorboards as I ease down the hall in my slippers. The snow's still falling, thick as goose down, and the porch light is glowing like a promise. I was just folding Ruth's little blanket, the one with the moons and stars Margaret sewed when she was pregnant. And I realised there's one more thread in this tapestry I haven't pulled through yet. The one that ties it all together, neat as a bow on a Christmas package. It was early this past fall, the kind of September day where the air smells like apples and regret. I'd been out in the garden, pulling the last of the tomatoes before the first frost could steal them. My knees don't bend like they used to, so I was on a cushioned stool humming Amazing Grace the way Tom did when he mowed the lawn. That's when I saw the car, a rusty sedan, unfamiliar, parked crooked at the curb. A woman got out, hesitant, clutching a manila folder like it might bite her. She was maybe 60, hair dyed a shade too dark, wearing a coat that had seen better decades. She stood at the gate a long time, staring at the house like she was memorizing it. I wiped my hands on my apron and called out, "You lost, dear?" She startled, then shook her head. "Evelyn Harper?" "That's me." I stood, hip twinging, and leaned on my cane. "Come on up. Mind the step. It's loose." She climbed the porch slow, eyes darting to the light fixture, the wreath, the rocking chairs where Margaret and I drink coffee, on Sunday mornings. When she reached me, she held out the folder. "My name's Clara. Clara Harlan. Richard was my brother. Harlan." The name hit like a stone in still water. I took the folder but didn't open it. "Come inside. I've got lemonade and a pie that's cooling. She followed me to the kitchen, sat at the table where generations of Harpers have carved initials and spilled milk. I poured her a glass, cut a slice of apple pie, crust flaky, cinnamon sharp. She didn't touch either. I'm not here to cause trouble, she said, voice trembling. I swear, Richard's gone and... well, he left something for you, for your family. I sat across from her, folder between us like a sleeping cat. Go on. She opened it herself, pulled out a stack of papers. Legal papers. A will, notarized 6 months before Richard died, and a letter in his handwriting, shaky, but clearer than I expected. Clara pushed it toward me. He changed it after you visited. Left everything to Caleb. Not much. Some savings bonds. A life insurance policy he'd let lapse but paid back into. About $30,000. And this. She tapped the letter. He wanted you to read it to the boy yourself. Said you'd know when the time was right. I didn't touch the letter. Not yet. Clara, why didn't you mail it? She looked down at her hands, nails bitten short, wedding ring missing. Because I needed to see the place he talked about in his sleep. The porch. The light. He said it was the last honest thing he ever saw. Her voice cracked. I hated him for years. What he did to Margaret, to you. But blood's thick, you know. I was his only family left. I nodded, slow. Blood's thick, but love's thicker. Sit here a minute. I went to the living room, found Caleb sprawled on the couch with his headphones, sketching something in his art book. Sweetheart, come to the kitchen. Bring your good heart. He followed, curious. When he saw Clara, he stopped short. You're his sister? Clara nodded. I am, and you're the reason I'm here. I handed Caleb the letter. From your grandfather. Read it when you're ready. Out loud if you want. Or alone. Your choice. He took it to the back porch, sat on the swing where Margaret and I had traded journals all those years ago. We gave him space. Clara sipped her lemonade finely, eyes on the window where snow had started to dust the rails. 10 minutes later, Caleb came back inside, letter folded neat, eyes red but steady. He said he was proud of me for protecting Grandma that Christmas, said he wished he'd been half the man I'm becoming. He looked at Clara. He wrote that he hopes the money helps me go to art school, said to use it to draw the kind of world he never could. Clara smiled then, small and real. That sounds like him at the end. He took art classes in hospice, drew porch lights, hundreds of them. Caleb hugged her, quick, awkward, 14-year-old style. She hugged back like she'd been waiting her whole life for it. We set the money aside in a trust. Caleb calls it the Porch Light Fund. He's already designing the logo, a glowing bulb with wings. Says he'll use it for college. But first, he's buying supplies to paint a mural on the side of the library where Margaret holds her support group. Something about bridges, he says, and light. Clara stayed for supper that night, spaghetti with meatballs, garlic bread, Ruth feeding noodles to Biscuit under the table. She told stories about Richard as a boy, before the gambling, before the lies, how he used to build forts in their backyard and charge the neighbour kids a nickel to enter, how he cried when their dog got hit by a car and buried it under the oak tree with a shoebox coffin. Margaret listened, quiet. When Clara left, she walked her to the car, handed her a Tupperware of leftovers and a slip of paper. My number, she said, if you ever need a porch light. Clara cried then, hugged Margaret fierce, drove off into the snow with her headlights cutting tunnels through the dark. That night, I added a new ritual to the fire pit. Every December 23rd, the anniversary of the hospital betrayal, we burn a slip of paper, not lies anymore, gratitude. Caleb wrote, for second chances. Emily, for family that grows. Ruth, with help, for cookies. Margaret, for porch lights. Mine, for Clara, who carried the message. We watch the ashes rise, sparkling against the stars, and I swear I see Tom's grin in the smoke. The mural went up last week. Caleb finished it with help from his art club. 12 kids, paint splattered and proud. It covers the whole east wall of the library, a porch, glowing warm, door wide open. People walking toward it from all directions, some in wheelchairs, some with canes, some carrying babies. Above it, in Caleb's careful script, the lights on. Come home. Margaret unveiled it at the last second chapter's meeting. Clara drove in from 2 towns over, stood in the back with a tissue. When the sheet dropped, the whole group, 20 souls who've lost spouses, children, homes, cheered like it was the 4th of July. After Margaret found me in the crowd. "Mum, look." She pointed to the bottom corner of the mural. There, tiny but unmistakable, a red call button and a silver key, side by side, glowing like embers. I laughed till my sides hurt. "That boy," I said. "He's going to make the world cry in the best way." Thanksgiving's coming again. The table's already set with the good china, the holly plates, the mismatched chairs we drag in from every room. Tommy and Lena are flying in. Clara's bringing her famous pecan tassies. Ruth wants to be the turkey this year, says she's practiced gobbling. Caleb's in charge of the playlist, says no more polka unless I dance, which I will, hit be damned. And Margaret, she's making the gravy, from scratch. No lumps this time, she swears. I still check the locks, still leave the light on. But now, when I pass the drawer with the call button and the key, I smile. Because they're not just things anymore. They're bookends. Holding up a whole shelf of stories. Betrayal, redemption, burnt rolls, porch lights, and a boy who turned his grandfather's regret into art. Darling, if you're ever in Ohio, come by Maple Lane when the snow's fresh and the air smells like cinnamon. Knock once. The door'll open. There'll be a seat saved, a slice of pie, and a story if you want it. Because this old house, it's not just wood and nails. It's a heartbeat. And it beats for anyone brave enough to walk toward the light. The rolls are rising, the coffee's hot, and the porch light's on. Thank you for listening, dear. Please don't forget to like this video, share it with your loved ones, and subscribe to our channel for more heart-touching grandma stories.